Okay, let's talk a little bit about Matplotlib and how it works in the Jupyter Notebook environment and just what the library does on its own. So you can see here that I've added the two lines that we talked about in the lesson. So I'm adding matplotlib.pyplot as plot. This is convention to call it PLT. You'll see that throughout everybody's code who uses it. And then in the Jupyter Notebook, if you add this line here, matplotlib inline, it will make sure that it prints out the plots that you created in line after the cell. See what that looks like here in a second. So let's go ahead and load the libraries. And then let's pull in the Titanic data set that we've been working with in the last section. And then just look at the beginning of it, and you can see that it's got those same familiar columns that you saw in the last lesson. Now what's cool, other than looking at the raw numbers that we were doing, just looking at pandas and doing summary statistics, now we can use Matplotlib to start to build a visual representation of the data that tells a better story. So I'll show you just a couple of examples. You can see that I have my pandas data frame, and now with Matplotlib I can just do this extension .hist, and I get a histogram of the column age. So it's going to take all of these values here of age, and it's going to create visual representation as a histogram. So just like that, you can see that I've got this neat story that the data is telling me as to what the distribution of ages are on the Titanic. You can see that it peaks here somewhere about mid-20s and then tapers off down from there. But that there was a non-trivial population of children that were on the boat as well. And we can tell all of that from one simple histogram plot. And show you another example, something a little bit more advanced. So let's look by passenger class. That's the class that they stayed in. And then the column survived, whether or not they survived, and then we're going to use a lambda function, which I hope you're familiar with from your Python experience, where we're going to take the sum of the function, divide it by the length of the function, which should give us a percentage, and then we're going to plot a bar plot. So what this is going to do is it's going to create a bar plot by class of the percentage of people that survived. And maybe it'll be a little more obvious when we show you the plot. All right, so we can see here that in first class you were much more likely to survive than you were here in third class. So in third class, only about a quarter of the people survived, and in first class, it was more like 65% of the people that survived. So if you ever are considering which class of ticket you should buy, if you're boarding a boat or an airplane, I highly recommend first class based on this plot. So it's interesting now that we have this set of tools that allow us to start visually inspecting the data. It really brings this greater power to our exploratory data analysis that we didn't have before when we were just looking at the raw numbers.